Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm sure you have heard that UFC 300 is right around the corner, and I have a discount code here to help you get ready for one of the most insanely stacked fight cards that you're ever going to see. My good friends at Black Rifle Coffee Company are partnered with the UFC, and from April 8th through the 13th, they are offering you a chance to save 30% off your first month in America's Coffee Club using the code UFC 300. Black Rifle Coffee is a veteran-founded and veteran-run brand, and they proudly serve coffee and culture to people who love America. Every purchase you make with Black Rifle Coffee helps them further their mission to support veteran and first responder causes. That covers everything from getting funding and equipment to first responders and helping veterans get medical care. Your money goes a long way towards giving back to those who have served our nation. Black Rifle Coffee also partners with many other veteran-owned and veteran-focused brands, including this massive new partnership with the UFC that started with a huge donation to the Hunter 7 Foundation to help veterans fight cancer. Black Rifle sources exotic roasts from award-winning farms all over the globe, and they have a wide variety of ground coffee, whole bean, and even K-cups and ready-to-drink coffee if you like yours on the go. Everything from the coffee to the bag art pays homage to the American culture and military history. They also have some of the best gear and apparel you can find. You can shop from a wide selection of mugs, graphic tees, workout gear, outdoor apparel, and much more, all made with veteran-inspired designs you aren't going to find anywhere else. If you've been looking for some high-quality, high-patriotic gear to wear, look no further. These guys are the best. The deal is only available from April 8th to the 13th, so head to blackriflecoffee.com right now for your 30% off your first month in the best coffee club in America using code UFC 300. And that's it on the business side of the house. Let's talk about my guest today, James and Bersabeh. Imagine being at the peak. What do I mean by the peak? Well, you could draw thousands of people to come listen to you talk. You were on the New York Times bestseller list. You had Oprah Winfrey's stamp of approval when she was at the peak of her television show. Major media outlets were reaching out to you. Audiences were captivated by your message of personal growth, transformation, and development. And you hold a retreat. There's a catastrophic loss of life due to an accident, and you're left $20 million in debt, homeless, largely a social outcast, some time in prison. And then you meet the one of your dreams. That's a tough one. You were at the top, now you're at the bottom. You meet the woman of your dreams, and she sticks with you. It's a pretty amazing story of redemption, and James and Bersabeh do a way better job of explaining it than I do. So let's get right into it. Episode number 330 with James Arthur Ray and Bersabeh. Enjoy.
Okay, I got the red smoke.
Gun run, north or south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy, west of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Come on with it, baby, give it to me, I need it. You're cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
Where do you guys want to start? Because I have a variety of questions.
Okay.
For each of you individually, personal questions, business questions, all of those things. I was almost thinking, I almost want to start with you kind of just describing what life was at the top, like the peak of the peak, where it was, because it kind of sets the stage for everything afterwards.
Right.
And I think we can just tell the story through that lens, if that works for you guys.
That works for me.
Fire away.
Works for me.
All right.
And Bersabeh wasn't there. She's never been at the top with me. She's been at the bottom. But she hasn't.
Interesting who sticks around with you when you go to the bottom.
Well, I'm telling you, yes.
Thank you, Andy.
You know, no,
You
it
find
says
out real fast who your true friends actually are.
Oh,
that's
that's
right,
for
and
sure.
that's one of the problems with being at the top, is that you never really know. Do people like me for me? Is someone with me for me, or are they with me for what I can do for them or give to them? And somebody always wants something from you. And so you never quite know. Well, I know with Bersabeh now, because when she and I met, and I'm not directly answering your question, but I will, what it's like at the top, but I'll just tell you, when she and I met, I was 54. I was in horrible physical condition. I'd just gotten out of prison. I lost 40 pounds I didn't need to lose. I had periodontal disease. I was alone at the time. I was homeless. And I was $20 million in debt.
That's a large number.
It's
Just a tad.
yes. You know, at 20 million, you kind of go, make it 30. What difference does it make? You know, I mean, it feels insurmountable. And so that's when I shortly met her thereafter. And I wasn't a real attractive prospect, but anyway, I digress. So
It's almost, I would almost say put a pin in that, though. Bersabeh, what did you see? Because I have to imagine that you were aware of those things that you just described, some of them being physical in nature. The other one, I know plenty of people who would not share the fact that they're $20 million in debt, but like, oh, I'm in debt. And you ask them for a number, it's, a couple 100,000. Yeah, times 50.
right.
What did you see in that moment that wanted you to not go in the opposite direction?
Well, the way we met was I had just gotten out of my divorce. Moved back from Belgium. I had no idea all the things that had happened to him. The first time I met him was he was speaking, his first speaking event right after he got out of prison. And the way he was speaking on stage spoke to me because it was like, this guy is like raw and real. And he's speaking my language. Like I feel what he's saying and I related to it because of my own pain. And then he has this... I don't know how to describe it, but it's this energy or this thing that he walks in with, and I was like, I want some of that. That's what I want. And then I went after him. Well, I didn't go after him. I stalked him.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
That was a startlingly true statement. I like how this is going so far.
Yeah, she's blunt. But she stalked me on Facebook, quite frankly.
Yeah, well, I didn't. He talked a little bit about his story and what he went through, and I had no idea. So I went and Googled it, and you don't want to Google him.
Wikipedia is not my friend.
Google is not his friend. But
I don't know if it's any of our friends, to be honest, because I have found on the internet, although it's an amazing tool, if you go there looking for a particular angle to look at an issue from, you will find that.
Oh, for sure.
And you can find the other angle, too. A lot of people don't actually take the time to develop a holistic approach of an issue, though.
Yeah, very well stated. And it would take a whole lot of time to find the other angle on mine, even though it is out there. It's all public knowledge, but it's buried very deep.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, plus when I looked at that and compared it to the person that I met that evening, it didn't match. Like, I didn't feel that from him. And I thought, this feels like it's been unfair. And I felt like it was unjust. So being out of a bad relationship and the way I was treated in that relationship, I was like, okay, I want to help him. And I was helping myself at the same time. So it was quite...
Win-win.
Coincidence. Yeah, the timing was perfect in a sense, the way we met.
Yeah, I mean, how do you think it would have gone if you would have met at a different phase in your life?
Oh, I've already told him that.
We've talked about it. She told me if she'd have met me when I was at the top, and there, there's a documentary about my life. I don't know if you've seen it, Andy, but it's called Enlighten Us, and CNN put it together, and it's on Netflix and wherever now, certainly on YouTube. But it shows the whole history, and in the subtitles, The Rise and Fall of James Arthur Ray. And it shows a lot of the clips of when I was at the peak, and she didn't like me very much in that. And I get it. I was a completely different person. I mean, we grow the most in the crucible of challenge. That's a fact. Mm-hmm. That's not popular, but it's a fact. I know I'm a better man, I'm a better human being going through what I went through, because pain brings us back to center. It brings us back to the heart. And I had to step back. When I was standing in the desert of Arizona in 2013, homeless, alone, $20 million in debt, horrible physical condition, I had to ask myself, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And I had to really ask myself, what's most important to me? And I realized it wasn't the things that, in all cases, that I completely invested myself in up to that point. And so it made a tremendous shift.
Looking back now, do you like the person you were at the top?
No. Yes and no. That's a tough question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that. No. She doesn't like the person I was at the top.
Well, of course, and in a true holistic answer, there'd be, of course, there were things you probably did like and things that you didn't, and your hindsight's 20/20.
Right.
Obviously, I asked that only through the lens of 15 years ago for me, 20 years ago for me, did I like the person that I was? I certainly had qualities that I can appreciate. But now with another 20 laps around the sun, I can look at it and say, I really wasn't doing this well, even though I thought I was.
Right.
I wasn't behaving well, even though I thought I was. My context for the world, I thought it was complete. Nobody possibly knew more than me when I was 23. I don't know if you guys know this. I was basically the oracle. Wikipedia had nothing.
You were
on
wrong
me.
because I was that guy. You know.
I think that's just the path of 23-year-old men.
Yeah, probably.
Like we were saying, I have a 20-year-old son. I have an 18-year-old son. He is actually the walking example of the Dunning-Kruger curve. He knows almost nothing, but feels like he's an expert in everything. And it is fantastic as his father to sit back and watch that shit unwind. It is fantastic. I love it because I see myself in him, and it actually makes it a little easier for me to take a breath and be like, we're all just human. Like the journey is so dissimilar, but so similar in the same regard. It allows me to just, maybe it wasn't just me galactically fucking up life. Maybe it's everybody who does that. At that
I think
age.
that's part of how we learn and grow.
Yeah,
isn't it?
for
You know,
sure.
I know for me, life was never easy for me. I wrestled and struggled and scraped and scrapped for years to get to the peak. And once I got there, I thought, okay, I've paid my dues, and here I am. Well, be careful because everything in this universe is transitory, or I should say in this physical world anyway, it's transitory. And it doesn't last. Now, I know we don't like that, but that's just the truth. Nonetheless, not liking it doesn't make it not true. And so did I like who I was? I would go with you. I believe my intention was always good. Sometimes my methodology and my delivery, not so good in hindsight. And so, yeah, I'm much better now. I'm much more humble. I'm much more kind, I would say.
Kind, I would say it's more, you're kind. You're more like toned down a bit. There's some people who are like, you gotta do this and you gotta get after it. And I told you, why didn't you do it type of thing. But he's more understanding of it.
I'm still type
understanding.
A. I mean,
think
I'm
would
still
be
really
best.
driven.
Yeah.
At this point in my chronology, a lot of people are wanting to hang up their spurs. I have no desire to do that. I'm still really driven. I get up at 3 a.m. every day, and I get after it, and
That's
go to
true.
the gym every day, and I'm busy. I want to contribute. I want to do something meaningful, and so that's always been a part of my constitution, and so where I see a problem when I was at the pinnacle is that I thought I'd paid all my dues, and you don't get done paying your dues.
Yeah.
That you just don't. There's always a price to pay for the prize, and whatever prize you're going after, the bigger the price you have to pay, and you have to pay it in advance, and that doesn't settle real well with the younger generations. They want it now. A lot of people have worked with us who are in the younger generations, and they say, well, I'll give it 18 months.
To them, though, that's actually longer than the Earth has been around.
Yeah.
That's another thing I've realized through my own kids and it allows me to remember myself at that age. My daughter's 15. A week is an exceptional period of time. Like if she's currently sick right now, so home from school, and she hasn't seen her friends in a few days. And by that, I mean a few days. It's a huge issue because that to her is a large period of time at this point. I appreciate not seeing human beings for a few days now in my life.
You and me both.
Can I extend this few days to be? Can a few days for me be a month? Their optic of the world is not. It's not what ours is a little bit later in life. I mean, I'm 46. I still don't understand how my driver's license says that. I don't feel 46. Emotionally, an argument could be made for 13. My wife might say 12, and I would have a hard time buttressing my argument against her. But it's amazing how your perspectives can shift. And I have noticed that about the coffee shop is a really good example. We hire what is a job as a barista? It's probably not a vocation. It's not something that somebody even though there may be people who
aspires to become.
Sure. I mean, and there actually are like world champion baristas. They have, if you really wanted to get into it, you could go as deep as you want. We're talking leather aprons. And oh, yeah.
I did not know that.
There's I think it was on Netflix. It was a full-on documentary about the world barista competition.
No way.
But you want to talk about some, I mean, and they have a limited amount of time. They're making like ice cream from scratch with nitrate. I'm like, holy cow. So there's a thing for everybody. But for most people, it's one of their first jobs. It's in the service industry. I expect turnover to be high. We start having people talk to us about raises within 60 to 90 days. I've worked here for a really long time. And if you haven't, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, that, first off, is baseline minimum barrier to entry in my mind. But to them, it's a really long time. But there is certainly a conflicting ideology between generations on that, the speed at which we should be rewarded for our effort. And I don't actually know how we bridge that, because it's one of the biggest things I see people smashing their head against the wall about.
Well, it's fascinating to hear that because, again, my assumption, which is obviously wrong based on what you just described, is that in a smaller town that the values and the morals and the upbringing and the family unit would be a little bit more stable and solid.
Only if they get all of that from the small town. There are portals to the rest of the world now that we didn't have.
Called smartphones.
I mean, truly. The influence from parents, I heard this quote, I think it was from Sean Ryan, also an ex-SEAL who hosts a podcast. He said, when you give your child access to a smartphone, it's not you giving your child access to the world, it's the world having access to your child. And that is a very interesting way to think about that. You no longer can really control what they see. And I mean, my daughters, I have a daughter, but both of my sons know who Kim Kardashian is. And I'm not saying that's negative. I do believe that that particular person, maybe that aspiration to be as well known or famous or to do those things, I have my own thoughts on that. But they know who Kim Kardashian is, but they would probably struggle to know. I'm trying to think of a figure from more of our era that developed their reputation over time and effort and success after success after success, because they have that device and they're constantly being bombarded by it. The small towns these days are small only in their geography, but the values, I think, have become much more global. And again, I don't know how to control that either. Good luck putting the smartphone thing back, that horse back in the barn.
Yeah, you have to wonder if that was intentional or not intentional. I don't know.
I think not intentional.
Did Stephen Jobs really intend that when he put that together? I mean, it's an interesting question.
So. I think
you'd like to hope not.
I think we're a fraction of as smart as we actually think we are. If you look back at most of the things, human intervention trying to fix the natural world, we don't have a great track record.
No.
We think we're the smartest things ever to walk the face of the earth. And maybe objectively we are, but I don't think that means we know it all.
Yeah. And sometimes that's debatable, whether we are the smartest things.
For sure.
It really is.
Yeah.
But that's fascinating because I think that's part of the big problem, my opinion, our opinion, maybe if I can speak for both of us, is of what we see in the world today is that we've gotten away from the fundamentals and we've moved much more into the secular, and so consequently, when do we talk about God today? I mean, if I may,
open table.
I'm working on a new book right now, and I call it the vertical relationship, which is obviously metaphoric because I believe God is within all of us, and we just need to find Him. But nonetheless, we've disconnected from that, going all the way back to the Renaissance, if you will, and we've become much more secular, which is religious skepticism, and it has no place, and those type of things. And at the same time, we have now 2 working parents, and we have all these things that have happened. Latchkey kids, which I was not. Bersabeh was. There's an age difference here. If you can't figure that out, just a tad. You say you can't believe your license says 46. I can't believe mine says 66. So
How old do you feel?
I feel like, how the heck did this happen? Because
You still feel like 18,
I
essentially?
feel great.
He's checking for himself.
Yeah. There's hope.
It's like, I want to make sure.
But and you're in good shape. I mean, I have never stopped working out except for the 2 years I was on my dysfunctional vacation because there was no gym. But I work out consistently, religiously. I eat clean.
He does,
I take a lot of supplements. I've done all these things right, and I think it's the persistence and the perseverance and that brings that about.
Consistency. Yeah.
Consistency. Yeah. I mean, I get up at 3 a.m. just religiously every day. Except we didn't go to bed till almost 2 a.m. this morning because
Got in late?
yeah. Well, getting in here is not that easy.
I don't find it to be that bad.
Yeah, because you're used to it.
He doesn't.
I picked the earlier flight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Even in our younger generations, I don't find it to be an issue of them being able to be consistent. It's consistent over time. It goes back to the amount of time that they seem, and I know this is a broad statement, so therefore not accurate for everybody, but the amount of time they're willing to be consistent in order to see the result that they want, I feel is shorter than generations before them. And I don't know where that started, and I'm not sure as to why it is. But again, I don't know how to bridge that gap.
It's an endurance issue. It really is. Given your background, I would assume you have quite a bit of endurance because
sometimes for some things.
Yeah.
There's some things now I'm like, I quit. I have no desire to do that ever. Like getting into the water voluntarily. No, I won't do it. It just, I've had enough. People don't understand why. And I have a perfect explanation for them. Like, do you like ice cream? Oh, I love it. If I force-fed it to you for 17 years, would you go to Baskin-Robbins on your day off? They're like, no, of course not. I'm like, then don't ask me to go in the water. It's really simple. I have endurance in some things, but if I look back at the training pipeline, it's not one thing that's hard. It takes about 2 years in the modern pipeline, to the best of my understanding, from when you start to finishing, and they award you your metal pin, the trident that makes you a SEAL.
right.
And I tell people this, and they don't believe me. Any average person off the street could make it through a day of SEAL training. They absolutely could. Given, they would need to have some, at least, semblance of physical ability. It's not the one day that's hard. It's the 180 days of basic SEAL training that is difficult. And then the 18 months of layering in the actual knowledge and skill base that you have to have. But I could teach you physically the requirements from a tactical perspective of the job. I could teach you, Bersabeh. It's not difficult, but it takes you so long to get to that. And then you realize you're constantly at the beginning of this journey. And that's what's hard about the pipeline. It's the grind. It's me asking somebody to take a piece of sandpaper and one day take it across your knuckles. And everybody's fine with that for one day. But 3 weeks later, when I keep asking you to do that one day at a time, and now your skin's bloody and infected, can you keep doing that? So from an endurance perspective, for that, in some things, yes, I have that ability. But in others, I also just have no interest.
Well, nor should you. I mean, you have to kind of clarify what your values are, and if I may, I'll segue back into one of the characteristics that you just described of being at the peak, if you will. I was on the road over 250 days a year. I had a beautiful condominium right on the water in Kona, Hawaii. And I used to go there twice a year for a month and just unplug and recharge. I hadn't been there for almost 3 years because I was just running. And I was getting an average of 4 hours of sleep per night. And it doesn't end. It's the sandpaper on the knuckles. You either, I don't know what develops that in an individual. Maybe you have it and maybe you don't. I don't know. But I think what I would say is that you have to love something enough and want it enough to endure. And, you know, I had the house in Beverly Hills on Mulholland Drive, 7,500 square foot estate, and everybody goes, oh, wow, that would be great. Well, not as great as you think, you know. I mean, my house payment was $25,000 a month.
That stings a little bit.
Isn't that nuts? And my yard crew was $5,000 a month, and the HOA and the taxes and so you just have to keep going. You know, my assistant would say, hey, when are you going to go to Kona? Well, I'll get there. No, you know. And so in many ways, when the whole situation drove me into bankruptcy, it was a gift. It was liberating, you know, because here's the other thing that I realized too, when I was involved in the terrible accident in 2009, and quite frankly, Andy, any thinking individual looking at the situation knew it was an accident. But the state of Arizona prosecuted me with a crime. And so the minute that happened, I lost not only 3 people I loved and cared about, which maybe you know something about, and it's heartbreaking. But I also lost my reputation. I lost my life savings. I lost my home. I lost my Inc. 500 company. It took me 20 years to build. I lost my friends, so-called colleagues and friends. Yeah. You know, people who, going back to what we said earlier, you never really know if someone's there for you or if they really care about you. Well, you find out in a crisis, because people who clamored to share the stage with me or wanted to do a joint venture with me or couldn't wait to just be associated with me disappeared like mist in a noonday sun, just gone. And that really hurt. You know, now I've done a lot of forgiveness work and a lot of processing, and again, I was quite broken and disillusioned and just angry when I got out of prison. And so it's been 11 years. Well, 2013 has been. It'll be 11 at some point this year. Yeah, 11 sometime this year. Yeah, in July. But it's taken. I've been on a long journey, and quite frankly, Bersabeh has helped save my life. She really has, because she's been there for me, and she saw something in me, even when I had lost it and didn't see it in myself. And so I think that's invaluable. If you can find someone who will be there with you no matter what. Yeah. And a lot of people say that, you know, but you really learn when you go through that tremendous fall. I went from Beverly Hills to literally to solitary confinement. I the first month I was in prison, I was in the hole right next to death row, because everyone thought I was so dangerous, I guess. I don't know, but they don't tell you. You know, I guess they thought I was going to whip a sweat lodge out of my back pocket or something. That would be an impressive feat. Yeah, especially in prison. I'm being sarcastic. But you know, it was sobering, and again, it brought me back to the heart to say, okay, look, I've lived my entire life, and I've acquired all these things. You know, I've got 7 properties that went into foreclosure. Well, how the heck did I get 7 properties? You know, it all made sense at the time. I had some rationalization for it. Yeah. You know, I had. Have you seen the second Wall Street, the newer one with Shia LaBeouf? Yes.
LaBeouf.
Yes, we saw that, didn't we?
Yeah,
we don't watch very many movies anymore.
I don't either, and I've only seen it recently because my son, one of the walking Dunning-Kruger curve, thinks he's a day trader now.
For now.
Holy shit. You want to talk about a wild ride? I'm trying to go to bed. He's trying to explain to me about the resistance he found in a stock. I'm just like, get out of my room. So he was watching that movie recently, and Josh Brolin's character is like this billionaire hedge fund manager, and Shia LaBeouf's character asks him, he's like, what's your number? And he says something along the lines of, I've asked a lot of people this, and most people have a very specific number from which, like, what's enough? And his character's response was, more. Yeah. Fuck. What a never-ending hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a true answer for a lot of people.
It certainly was for me, even though if you'd have asked me at the time, I wouldn't have admitted it, but it was. You know, I know I don't look at it anymore, but maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but I was a competitive bodybuilder for a number of years, and I grew up really skinny, scrawny, bullied in school, really insecure. My dad was incredibly dynamic and charismatic, and I felt less than. And so at some point in time, I decided to go to the gym, and I started working out, and I started putting on size. And anyway, it was never enough. You know, no matter, at one point I weighed 240. And look, if you look at my bones, I'm not meant to weigh 240. I'm a very small bone. And I was in pretty good shape. I wasn't overweight 240. I was built. And it wasn't enough. I was now going to the gym 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night, every single day. And you know, everything it was, and everything I ate, lived, breathed was bodybuilding. And I'd go to the gym and I'd look at another guy and I'd go, man, he's bigger than me. I got to work harder. Well, now you take that, and I kind of retired that, and God and life retired that for me too. I got hit head on a Kawasaki Ninja and totally shattered my left arm and blew out both knees and had herniated discs, and they said, you're done. And so I took that same behavior and went into business. And again, it's never enough. When is enough enough? And that's one of the things that I really feel blessed with. It wasn't comfortable. It was incredibly painful, and I don't want to go through it again, but I'm grateful, is that it's enough right now. It's enough. I mean, Bersabeh and I are doing what we love, and I have her, and we love each other, and we have a wonderful, simple life. We have a comfortable home in Henderson. I could care less about having a 7,500 square foot estate. For me, single me, 7,500. What do you do with all that space? You know, it's
collect stuff, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, and I did. I decorated
paintings
it.
or whatever.
I did.
Did you really?
Oh yeah. I had it all, man. I had a baby grand piano.
Did you know how to play?
No,
of course not.
No, but it was a player piano. So
how many of those guys really know how to play the grand
Zero.
piano? They all have it too.
It looked good.
Yeah.
You know, I had a full blown movie theater.
Of course.
And, you know,
for your screenings.
For me.
Yeah.
For me. So it's crazy what the socialized mind conditions us into that is so valuable and so important is such a lie. It really is, because I didn't know who I could trust. I couldn't stop. You know, literally I would be in 4 to 5 cities a week. Every single week I'd come home late Friday night. I would go to the gym on Saturday, go to the gym on Sunday, catch a crack of dawn flight on Monday and be gone again. And so I had this big house that I was in for 2 nights a week at best. I had this place in condo in Hawaii that I never went to. I had another home in Henderson, Nevada that I went to a little more frequently because it was easier from L.A. to Nevada. But it's not all it's cracked up to be. It really isn't.
Describe for me and for everybody, if you would, kind of what you built and what got you to that peak. And then in whatever terms you want to talk about, how it went off the other side of that.
Yeah. Well, I as I said, I really struggled. It never came easy for me. And I've always had a tremendous work ethic. I thank my dad for that, because he had a tremendous work ethic. He was a Protestant minister, by the way. And he was always speaking at conventions, and he was in big demand, and he was very dynamic. So I sat there and listened to him as I was growing up, and that had a big impact on me too, and the way I communicate. And I'm grateful for that. But I've always had this tremendous work ethic. And people used to always tell me, you work too hard. And I thought, no, I'm a man on a mission. You know, I know what I'm here to do, and I'm going to get it done. And so I just continually stayed at it and stayed at it and stayed at it. And it took me, 20 years literally to become an overnight success. There were so many years of scraping and scratching and credit cards and all these kinds of things, trying to see how I could stay afloat. And then in 2005, I was part of a mastermind group and with people in the industry. And I was late because I was speaking at another event, and I came in a day late. And there was a producer there, Rhonda Byrne, who was shooting this footage for a movie that became a worldwide phenomenon called The Secret. And
oh yeah, okay. It was a book too, right?
it was a book, yes. So she was interviewing everyone, and I got interviewed for that, and ended up, she picked 5, 6 people to be in it out of all these 30, 40, 50 interviews that she did, and I happened to be one of them. And so my career just exploded. I went from barely making ends meet in 2006 to being on Oprah twice and Larry King twice and the Today Show, easy for me to say, the Today Show once a month for multiple months running.
What was the velocity of that change? Was it literally almost overnight?
It was breakneck.
Really? It went from kind of flatline to like a non-linear acceleration?
It was hockey stick. Yeah.
Wow.
It was crazy. And so much so that I had to, the first time I was on Larry King, it crashed the servers in our office, and then we didn't have enough phone lines. And that was first. Oprah was even bigger, and so I had to scramble really hard. I was in California at the time, and I had a very small office in La Jolla, and I moved to Carlsbad and upsized everything, bought all new phones, and had to hire new people, and that's what you call a high-level problem to have. Businesses started rolling in,
La Jolla is such an ugly place to have an office, though.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, it is.
It's terrible.
People who have no idea what I'm talking about, I'm sorry. You should go visit and walk on the coast. It's quite beautiful.
It really, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous, but you pay for it, too. It's very expensive.
That is very true.
So nonetheless, I moved to Carlsbad and upscaled everything and hired new people, and then the floodgates opened, especially after Oprah. The floodgates opened, and then Oprah offered me to be on her show as a regular, once a month minimum, maybe twice.
What year was this?
This was 2007.
So that was like peak, powerful Oprah Winfrey show.
Right.
It's like the heavy hitter of network
Right.
TV. Okay.
Yeah.
And here's the drum roll. I turned her down. And
How does she take that?
not well. Not well at all.
I feel like somebody in that position is not used to hearing the word no often.
No, and she was dropping the Dr. Phil card all the time, and of course she made his career.
Yeah.
But here's what happened: is I had a 30-person team at the time. It got a little bit bigger after that, but at the time I had 30 people, and I was on the road, as I said, 250 days a year nonstop, and I knew what I was generating. We were generating about $30,000 a night every single night, and so I started penciling things out, and she offered me, while I really wanted to work with her, who wouldn't, and I knew it would be a positive thing, I couldn't make it financially pencil out, and because I'd have to fire a lot of my people, and I will tell you, Andy, that as much money as I've made, which I've made a lot of money, it's never been a big driver for me. I've walked away, from a lot of things that were very financially beneficial, including a career at AT&T, because I had other values, and that's just always been, again, part of my wiring. But I turned her down, and right after that happened, my New York Times bestseller had been picked up. It wasn't a bestseller yet, but it had been picked up by the publisher, and they also had worked with Oprah, and so they thought that Oprah was going to be this big advocate. And because I turned her down, they called her and they said, "Hey, we got James Arthur Ray, and we got his new book, Harmonic Wealth." And she said, "Well, don't expect me to promote it. I'm not going to do that." And so,
Not unsurprising.
no.
As you were in that hockey stick growth, I mean, are you just trying to manage in real time the growth? Are you looking at where you think the trajectory might change, or are you just knocking problems down as they're presenting themselves because it's growing so fast?
I came out of AT&T School of Business, and when I was there, I was a C-suite consultant, and I have a tremendous amount of gratitude to AT&T for my business acumen. That's really where I learned all things about business, and I turned around and I was coaching and working with CEOs and people in the C-suite, executives, and so I was doing both. I was projecting forward, and I was hiring new people, and I was getting people, and yet it was almost too fast to keep up, especially when you're on the road over 250 days a year. It's very difficult to do all things, and yet I had to not only run a business, but I had to deliver content every single night in different cities. I had to be on airplanes and all those things, and be on appearances and be in the media and all these things simultaneously. And there's no room to breathe. There just wasn't. Yeah. And so where I wasn't projecting, and this was my own ignorance, is that it would someday end. I really thought, as I said, which was not true, that I had paid all my dues and that God had blessed me. I'll back up. In 2006, I asked God to help me have a bigger positive impact in the world. And so now come to where we are, and I thought, here it is. This is the blessing. This is all the hard work and all the due diligence that you've done, and all the perseverance. You've been rewarded, and so that was the illusion. Because if I may jump forward to prison, I remember sitting in solitary confinement, angry, just angry at how things had gone down, and 32 counts of prosecutorial misconduct, and the state was fined, had to be sanctioned for a Brady violation, which is suppression of evidence in my favor, and I mean, if you want to talk about those things, there's so much to talk about. But I was just angry because I'd grown up in America, and I'd been told how the justice system works and how our legal system works and what my rights are, and they were totally not true in my circumstance. And so I'm sitting in the cell, and I'm having this conversation with God, and I said, this is my reward. I give all those years and all that time to help people, and this is what I have. And what came back to me is, so you did it for a reward. That's not the right reason. Wow. Yeah. You know what? That's true. You should do it because it's the right thing to do. Period. And so that's where I would say, to digress to your earlier question, that I like the guy I was before. I thought I really deserved, and I don't want to be Pollyanna, because when you work hard and when you do the things you need to do, you become a Navy SEAL. You have to give yourself credit for that endurance and for that perseverance. And yet, there's a lot of people who do those things, and they don't get the same outcome. And so you have to realize there's something bigger working through you than what's coming from you. And hopefully that makes sense to you.
It does. What was when did it start, the growth? You're at the peak. What caused it to go the other way? Because that can lead us into what happened in the trial and the prosecutorial misconduct. Wow.
It's a hard word.
I got it out. I think.
It's a tough word. Well, in 2009, I was at the peak. Fortune magazine wrote a full feature article on me, and they called me the harbinger of leadership and performance and personal performance, and they said I was basically the next guy, and so I was really at the peak, Beverly Hills and all those things that we talked about. And in 2009, my team and I had a 5-day deep dive retreat in the deserts of Sedona, Arizona. And it was a deep dive into the drivers of all of your actions, your habits, and your ultimate results. Now, most of us think the drivers are things like our sales ability, our communication skills, our marketing skills, or any of those types of things we could fill in the blank. But those aren't the drivers. I'm not saying those aren't important. Of course they are. But the drivers are not outside of you. The drivers are inside of you. And psychology tells us that 95% of what we do every single day is driven by our unconscious mind. 95%. And so that means consciously we have 5% that we're operating on. 95% is what's driving us. And so what's there? Well, again, psychology tells us that there's the most important years of our life are from birth to 14. Those are the formative years. And there's a lot of things that happen from birth to 14. Sometimes trauma happens, and Bersabeh can certainly talk to that from her experience. There's a lot of things that we don't have the resources to deal with. And so we do our best to get through. We sometimes power through. But then what we do is compartmentalize those things. And that becomes part of the 95%. We call those unresolved emotional issues. And so all that to say, the most powerful thing, empowering thing that you and I can do, all of us can do, to really change our life is to make the unconscious conscious, because only when you make the unconscious conscious can you observe those things, block barriers, limitations, and heal them and integrate them and literally set yourself free. And so that's what we were doing in this 5-day retreat. It was an intimate event. There were 52 people. I was working one-on-one with everyone, up close and personal, and we cried a lot. We laughed a lot. We hugged a lot. And those individuals changed categories real quick. They went from client to friend. Mm-hmm. Because the reality is I knew more about some of their deepest, darkest secrets than their nearest and dearest friends and loved ones, just the nature of the program. Well, long week, long hours, and at the end, and we'd done it for 5 years prior, at the end, we always had this kind of graduation exercise called, and it was experiential learning opportunity called a sweat lodge. And it was an opportunity to, again, practice psychologically what we call transference, to be able to take all this hard work psychologically, emotionally, that we've done spiritually, and transfer it into an experiential learning opportunity that would bring up some of the same doubts, fears, insecurities, uncertainties. And if we could push through those, we'd come out and feel victorious. And that's every single year. That's what happened. And we told people it would be hot, it would be crowded, it would be difficult. And so they would go in uncertain, and we'd go through the lodge, and they'd come out and they'd feel like, wow, I really did something, with the hope that then they could say, hey, if I did that, I can go back to my daily life, relationships, and business, and do the same things there. And that's the objective of an experiential learning opportunity. And it was always a highlight. But in 2009, no. In 2009, unfortunately, 3 people lost their lives that day in the lodge. And unfortunately, even more so, is that to this day, Andy, we still don't know for sure what caused it, because, frankly, the DA and the detective, state of Arizona, didn't follow up on the forensics. And everything I'm going to share with you is public knowledge. And as I said, you have to dig deep, but it's all part of the court records. And yes, I did end up getting charged with a crime, not just any crime, manslaughter. And so something clicked for me there, because I was like, are you kidding me? You know, imagine for a moment that you've lost 3 people you love and care about. It feels like it's more than you can bear already. And yet now all of a sudden you're going to be charged with intentionally harming them. And your whole life has been spent doing your best to try and support and empower people. It was the antithesis of anything I'd ever lived my life for or given my life to. And so they charged me with manslaughter, and right there, everything started to fall apart. I mean, I instantly lost my reputation. The media, who once clamored to have me, literally crucified me. If anyone watched mainstream media during 2009-10, they saw it all over.
Hockey stick in the other direction.
Hockey stick, yeah, going down to hell. And so, you know, it was the CNNs and the ABCs and the NBCs, and they just literally crucified me and called me every name in the book, from murderer to cult leader to all these things, which again, it was unfathomable to me because I had doctors and lawyers and very successful business people in there, and they're not cultish following kind of people. They were very intelligent people, and it was a really not in their favor to be called those kind of things, but nonetheless, I went to trial. Before trial commenced, they came to my legal team with a plea bargain, and they said, okay, you sign that you're guilty, and we'll only give you 5 years. And I said to my lawyer, wait a minute, Luis, you're asking me to sign a document that says I intentionally harm people. That's not true. He goes, I know, James. I said, and he said, I'm not asking you to do that. That's what they're asking. I said, well, I can't do that. It's not true. It's a lie. And he said, well, I thought you might say that. He said, but here's the flip side, and I'm bound to tell you this. They told me that if you didn't take this, they're coming after you for 30 years, and they're going to come after you with every single thing they have. And I said, I swallowed hard. That's right.
Bring it.
I didn't say bring it. that's Bersabeh.
I appreciate the headspace deeply.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
I was kind of trying to break up the drama there.
Try to bring some humor to the situation.
How long was the legal process ongoing for them to get to that point with the offer? Was that relatively towards the beginning? I mean,
no,
because there was no trial up to that point, right?
It was almost 2 years of anguish.
Wow.
Right, and during that time, every material thing had been wiped from me. I lost the home. I lost my business. It took me 20 years to build. I lost my life savings. All those things gone. And so I was hanging on with my fingernails for that whole time period and talking to the lawyers almost every single day. Tremendous amount of stress. And so I said, I can't do that. And he said, okay. And so they kept their promise. I went to trial. It was 4 months trial, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. I mean, imagine, Andy, if you will, sitting there, not only having lost 3 people you loved and cared about and all material things, but now you've got 30 years hanging over your head for 4 months, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, thinking 30 years. The stress... I didn't have any gray hair then, but
I feel like you probably developed some rapidly.
Yeah, pretty quickly. And then, of course, I'm married, so that helps develop gray hair.
I didn't have
too.
single gray hair until I had kids. I'm surprised I have any color left in my hair. Journey of exploration with all 3 of them. Very different problem sets.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yeah, but they kept their promise. They came at me with both barrels loaded, and there's so many things I could tell you about, but there was perjury, that was caught, there was 32 counts of prosecutorial misconduct by the DA, 32. 1 count of prosecutorial misconduct is grounds for mistrial, no mistrial. Then there was a Brady violation, which is suppression of evidence that they had in my favor. They suppressed it, and they were caught, and they were sanctioned, and that's grounds for mistrial, no mistrial. And so it was obvious, and some of the viewers may disagree with me, but here's my experience. We're told that our justice system is put together for the pursuit of truth, and I will tell you, my experience is put together for political power and greed, period. And this was a small town, nothing against small towns. This was a small town in Arizona, and I was the biggest gorilla they'd ever had there. Let's take down the big giant who's on Oprah and Larry King and all over the place and lives in Beverly Hills, and make a name for ourselves. And that's frankly what they did. After 4 months, the jury couldn't find one shred of evidence for manslaughter. Thank God, because there wasn't any. It was a tragic accident. It really was.
Does manslaughter, that charge itself, require intent?
I believe so. Yes, my understanding of manslaughter is a guy goes into a convenience store and shoots the
A
cashier
deliberate
in the head.
action.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Which, again, if anyone who's an entrepreneur, yourself or the viewer, imagine intentionally harming your clients and thinking you're going to stay in business.
Not in the modern era.
No, you can't do that. And so it was so ludicrous to me. But here's what I learned about the legal system, too. They bumped it up to manslaughter intentionally because there was a lesser included charge called negligence, and that gave them 2 shots to take me down. Well, the jury acquitted me of manslaughter. Thank God. That was the 30 years. But what I got convicted of was negligence. Negligence basically says that some things were overlooked, some things were missed, some things could have been done better. And as a leader, I wish they had been. I wish they hadn't have been overlooked. I wish they'd have been done better. I wish they hadn't have been missed. And so, again, part of leadership is you shoulder it. You don't throw your team under the bus. You don't blame anyone else. And that's a heavy burden to bear. It was then, and it still is to this day. And so I was convicted of negligence, and I went to prison for 2 years, not to jail. And I want to make that clear. You know, a lot of people said, "Oh, you went to jail." You know, jail
is where you go when you're shit faced.
That's right.
You leave the next.
That's
morning.
right. Yeah, you leave. Yeah. No, this was prison, and it wasn't federal prison. It was state prison.
Yeah.
You know, I know a guy who went to federal prison. He goes, "Oh, it's kind of like a resort that you just can't leave." Well, not my prison. You know,
I'm not so sure the prison he came from was a resort you can't leave either.
Yeah,
you know,
he might. Who knows? I mean, my cellmates were skinheads and members of the Aryan Brotherhood. These guys were not kind, caring guys. They were angry guys, and that's where I spent 2 years. Heroin addicts and you know.
How'd you survive your time there around those people?
Well, I went in. Again, still man on a mission. I remember telling the detective, "All right, you guys are sending me away," and I was trying to keep my chin up, doing my best. I said, "I'm gonna make a difference with these guys in prison." He goes, "All right, you do that." And what I very quickly realized is that they were so drunk on their own cheap wine that they weren't interested in finer wine. They were not interested. Period. They wanted to watch TV. They wanted to do drugs. There are more drugs in our prison systems, as much, if not more, than there are on the streets. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. I lived next to guys who were shooting up every single day, and it was well known. It was well known. So what I decided after I scaled back the man on a mission was that I decided, okay. And it took me a while to get there. I did pity party. I blamed God. I was really angry at God for a while. And then I finally came to the point and said, hey, you know what? You're going to do 2 years here. And you can either be miserable or you can make the best of it. And so I started practicing the things that I'd taught, you know, and it took me a little bit, but I got there. And I decided I'm not going to help anyone else. I'm going to work on me. And so pretty much the whole 2 years I was there, I read 8, 10, 12 hours a day. I reread a lot of books that I've always been a big reader. Mm-hmm. I worked out. There's no weights.
Did the best you could.
Yeah, calisthenics and pull-ups and push-ups and those kind of things. I did my best to eat well, which is really tough in prison. You know, I don't think God makes meat in a tube. It comes in a tube. I don't know what that is, but I don't think it's meat. And
I'll just say I've had some questionable meats in my life.
I'm sure you have.
One of my favorite stories that blows people's minds is we were eating Fridays. It was either Fridays or Sundays. It was steak and shrimp dinner in Bagram, Afghanistan. And the shrimp was like breaded and fried, which I think hard to mess up. The steaks were gray.
Gray?
Gray. Mostly because they were broiled, you know, or just it was bad.
That doesn't even sound good.
Outside, we were walking out one day, and I looked over, and there was a bunch of boxes over by the garbage can, and it said, Grade F for military and law enforcement use only, or prison, I should say. Military and prison use only.
Wow.
And that was the last steak and shrimp dinner that I attended. But yeah,
They've
What
got
does
you.
that
They've
even
got you.
mean?
They've got you in
It
a
means
really
it's
bad
the-
category.
it means that it's the lowest possible quality of protein that the government can buy for pennies on the dollar that probably is not legally allowed to be served anywhere else. So they're
Yeah.
just irradiating that stuff in the back in an oven and then serving it out.
For the very people that are protecting the country.
I mean, we're doing our best. I have my own questions about how much I protected anything, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, that was my last steak and shrimp night. I would rather go hungry than eat grade F steak, and I recommend that people should do the same.
Well, I can
Fully
relate.
noted.
There's a lot of things I just wouldn't eat, And when I was there, because it was just horrid. I mean, they have a calorie count, and they don't care how they get there. So how do you get most quickly to a calorie count? Well, you have starchy carbs. So, I've never in my life been to a breakfast where you have pancakes with a side of bread. It just
My son would love that.
would you?
My son would.
Oh, your son.
Oh, your son would.
Yeah.
Is he a starchy carb guy?
He just eats like a garbage disposal. He's at an age where he can't. I think he would go pancake bread, and be utterly satisfied with what you just described.
18-year-old?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, metabolism like a nuclear generator.
They
And
eat
just,
Like a
Whatever.
bumblebee.
I just look at it in shock, like, okay, buddy, you got a limited time for yourself to enjoy
Yeah,
this. Get
enjoy it
after
while you can.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm basically read. I did yoga every day, yoga postures every day to stay limber. Went out on the yard and worked out and did what I could, and basically lived in my cell. Once I got out of solitary confinement, I went to what's the term? It's slipping me. It's not maximum
General
security.
population?
Well, I didn't go. No, I went to minimum security.
Okay.
And so consequently, I could come and go from my cell. We could leave the cell door open, except in count 3 times a day. We had to be in the cell, and then at night it was locked down. And so I basically lived in my cell because most of my cellmates were out, either watching TV or playing cards or doing God knows what kind of nefarious things. But I just went inside, and I'm not a big TV watcher, never have been. So I read a tremendous amount of books, reread a lot of things, journaled a lot, took tons of notes, and came to some real clarity for myself. So I'm grateful for that experience. I don't want to do it again. Please, let's make that clear.
Yeah.
But I really am grateful because I made it work in my favor, and I think that's utilization, and I think that's what we all have to do in life, is we have to take what life hands us and utilize it to become better and to become more and hopefully grow as a human being.
Would you go through that journey again to be sitting here at this table in the same situation you're at now?
Well, that's a great question. Yes. I would.
I've been asked, and I asked that because people have asked me about my divorce. Why would you consider getting married again? And like we were talking a little bit off air, there are so many positive things that I can bring from that time period, or things that I learned about myself, or how about my children as an example. Were there lows in that? For sure. But that experience also made me who I am, and it made me capable of appreciating where I'm at now. So I would do it. I would do another 20 years in that situation to be where I'm at now. I'm not saying I would enjoy it and have a smile on my face every day, but I understand what I've learned in that process.
Yes, I know I'm definitely a better human being, and according to my lovely wife, I wouldn't, if she's being completely frank, I wouldn't have her if I hadn't have gone through that. And that's part of what makes us relate to each other too. And I feel like I've hogged all the airtime here, but she
Well, how soon after you got out did you guys meet?
it was quick.
Because I was going to ask her to fill me up on her life up to when you guys met each other. Because then we can talk about what you're doing going forward.
Yeah, that's and her life.
Before that, though, what were your aspirations or thoughts while you were in of what you were going to do when you got out?
Yeah, that's good.
That is a good question. You're good at this. You should do a podcast.
I've often fantasized about being in jail and wondering what
In
the
jail?
hell. Well, prison, of course.
Yeah.
Jail's where you go to visit when you're like, don't do
Jail's
that again.
for snowflakes.
Prison's like, you fucked up, kid.
Yeah, you're
I
really messed up.
I mean, you have time. You have so much time for yourself, and like, okay, these are things I can't do, which is almost everything. So there's a lot of time to think about. At some point this will end. What do you want to do? What do you want to be? What can you become? What limitations would you have? Having worked through the legal system, I'm just curious how much thought you had put into the next.
A lot. I was really bitter about. I came out of obviously the personal development arena, and people call it self-help. You can put whatever label you want. I don't like any of those labels, but nonetheless, that kind of describes where I came out of, and I wanted nothing to do with that because with only two exceptions, every single person, and I know them all. Name to name. I know them. I've spent time with them. I've been backstage with them. And nobody even reached out. No one sent me a text. Nothing. No phone call to say, hey, how you doing? Hang in there. When I was going through all that. No one. And this is an industry that is supposedly here to support and to help the downtrodden, if you will, and to help people get through the tough times. But they didn't even do it for one of their own. And I understand it now. I was really bitter at one point. But I also understand if you look at what was happening in the world, in our country, I should say, in 2008, 2009, the real estate market was crashing. And, and there was a lot of financial stress and businesses were off. And so I'm not saying I agree with it. Understanding does not equal agreement. But I do understand, if you've got a guy who has a scarlet letter and your name is on his website, then maybe you need to call his assistant and say, take my name off his website, which happened in spades. If I wrote a testimonial for his book, his new book coming out, maybe you should call his assistant, not him, but his assistant, and say, don't put my testimony on the book. And
yeah, but is that okay for people who are supposedly trying to help people in the personal development?
Your friends are the ones who will stand with you in the rain, even when there's an opportunity to be dry.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah. People forget that. It's easy to be a friend when everything is going great. I actually think you're really fortunate that you had that happen to you.
I agree.
Because you now have, without a shadow of doubt, the Rolodex of who is and who is not your friend.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And so it left a bitter taste in my mouth, and that was the industry that I came out of. And so, again, I could count on less than one hand the people that were there for me. Bersabeh didn't know me at the time. And so when I came back, one of the people that was there for me, God rest his soul, he's gone now, was a man named John Ferreter. He was my media agent, manager with William Morris. And I was under contract with William Morris at the time, an agency. And he stayed with me through it all. And they even threatened to fire him because of it. And God bless him. He said, hey, you don't abandon your friends. Mm-hmm.
Easier said than done.
Right. They didn't fire him, but they sure threatened. And so I said to him, and I had so many offers to have my own TV show, and that was a big vision of mine. And so going back to prison, I thought, all right, what am I going to do when I get out? Well, I'm not going to go back to personal development, but maybe I can host a really great show. And I said to Ferreter, I said, that guy that's on Dancing with the Stars, get me that job. I'll go and I'll just do my shoot and I'll go home and sleep in my own bed at night.
Super weird show to pick, but okay.
Yeah,
yeah, right.
From helping people to dance.
Okay.
Well,
I would not have guessed that that's the path that you would have gone or the show you would have selected, but all right.
Yeah. Sorry to disappoint. But nonetheless, it was a metaphor. And so, give me a show like that, and I can go shoot and put a couple things in the can and go home and sleep in my own bed every night. And so I don't want to go back to personal development. Well, And that didn't last very long, because it's what I believe God has sent me here to do, is to contribute in that way. Mm-hmm. And I happen to be gifted, and I say that literally. I think those gifts have been given to me, and yes, I've worked hard and I've studied and I've had the perseverance, and yet I think I have the gifts that have been given to me, and I'm grateful for that, to do that and be able to help people. And so it didn't last very long, and I remember my mom, who has now passed, said to me when I decided to go back in again, she said, "Son, what are you doing?" She said, "After everything you've been through, all the haters and all the trolls, and because it all blew up, it was horrific, and all the things that have been said to you and done to you, if you go back out again, they're just going to come back at you again." And I said, I know. And she said, "Then why are you doing it?" And I just looked at her. She goes, "I get it. You don't have a choice, do you?" I said, "No, I really don't. That's what I believe I'm here to do." And so I firmly believe that's what God has sent me here to do. And so I ended up going back into it. I wouldn't have been fulfilled doing Dancing with the Stars or any semblance.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
As somebody who knows almost nothing about Dancing with the Stars, I would agree with that.
Yeah, or any show of that nature. I mean, I've got to be able to share what I believe to be true, and I don't necessitate that you agree with me. If you disagree with me, I'm totally good with that. I want you to think for yourself, and that's what Bersabeh and I do. We tell people, be an independent thinker. Think for yourself. Don't take anything at face value. Check it out. Do your own research, particularly in today's world.
Seriously.
So that's how I got back in.
Are you ready?
We have time?
We have all the time in the world. Cameras are still running, I think. Yeah, we're totally good. Bersabeh, fill me up on your life up until the point where you two met.
Up until the point. Well, okay, I didn't grow up in the States. I was born in Iran at a time where Iran and Iraq were at war. And it was right when the so-called revolution happened. So my childhood memories are bombs dropping and people dying and getting shot and gunshots and all that kind of stuff. So I grew up in a Baha'i family, and in Iran at the time, because the Islamic Republic took over, they gave a really hard time to the Baha'is and to the Jewish people. And how they did it is that...
The Christians too, I think.
Christians too, yeah. They give a hard time to the Christians as well. They were a little bit harder on the Baha'is and Jews for whatever reason, because I think they also believe in the Bible. Well, these radicals, let's call them, because not all people that are have the Islamic faith have the same beliefs that came from the group, which is Hezbollah. That's basically what it is. So you weren't allowed to go to school. You couldn't get an education as a Baha'i. You couldn't own your own business. So for those very reasons, we decided to leave. And before we left, what happened was when Khomeini came into power, they threw out the Shah, and how they sold it to people is that, well, the Shah is a dictator. So what you guys really want is to have a system where you can vote for the president. That's how they sold it to the people. And they're like, yeah, we want to vote for the president. We want to have a say in who's going to be our president.
So they were pitching democracy, essentially.
Yes. So that's what the people went in the streets, and they were doing their, what is it called, rallies? No, it's not a rally.
Protests,
thank you. Protests and riots. And the day that the Ayatollah Khomeini came in, that very same day, he was like, okay, from this day forth, all the women have to cover themselves up. And the women are going, wait, what? What happened here? What? And the military that came in, these were people that were not Iranians. They were from Palestine, well, from Hamas. And they were killing people. They were raping women, throwing people in prison. If you're a Baha'i and Jew, They would take all your belongings, all your gold, and etc. So one night, military broke in and took my father to prison and took all their belongings and gold and all that stuff. And when you go to prison there, it's pretty much it's a death sentence. You don't make it out. And when he was in prison, he would say they would count at night because they would assassinate people while the prisoners are there. So every night when they're going to bed, they would count how many bullets were being fired, which is how many people would die. And he said every night we count at least 200, which is nuts. So being there, luckily the first time, he got out after 6 months. Then he tried to leave the country by himself at first to be able to come to the States and then bring us over, his family. But unfortunately, he ended up getting caught, and he went to prison again. So my mom, I'll do my best not to get emotional here. When my mom went to go visit him in prison, okay. This is where you do a joke, a drum roll or something.
Yeah,
So
they took all the Persians' gold, and Persians have a lot of gold. You know, if you know anything about Persians, they really like gold.
Well, now the Persian community is not going to like you very much.
Yeah, well,
There's no way to please everybody.
Yeah,
I've
you
determined
You
that.
really
if you're not
can't.
making waves, you're playing in the shallow end of the pool.
How did your parents describe to you the situation in Iran when you were growing up? How was it framed to you as a child?
Well, it you know, everything was, you were always, how do you explain this? Nothing was ever safe. You were always like on the lookout, on the watch out. Is something going to happen? Is a bomb going to drop on us?
Just general unease at all
Yeah,
times?
for sure.
Stress?
Someone's going to come. I used to walk around holding my dad's hand because I was afraid they were going to rip him out of our, house again or something. And, normally parents are chasing their kids. I was a kid chasing my parents, make sure that you don't lose them. But the second time he went to prison, my mom went to go visit him and the guards raped her. And that,
It's horrendous, unfortunately.
yeah.
Had they talked about leaving before he had interaction with prison there? Just because of the environment, that uncertainty, that stress, the anxiety?
Not until the first time he went to prison. After the first time he went to prison, they decided that you can't live there because it just got worse. As a man, my father could have lived there comfortably by himself. But for women and his kids, there would have been no future for them. And there really isn't. And there's so many stories of this, of people that have come out of that country in those years from, I think, probably 79 to 89 or something. And everyone has their stories of, some are worse than others, and some had it a little bit better, but it's pretty horrific. And so after the second time he went to prison, they said, we can't live here. We have to leave. So this time they decided that let's all try to go as a family. So then there you have to find someone to pay him to smuggle you out of the country, which was crazy by itself. So we left, and this guy is driving us going through the desert, going through Pakistan. And,
in the dead of night with no headlights.
And if you get caught, we would have all been. You could be dead, thrown in prison, raped. God knows what would happen to you, pretty much. And luckily, we made it across. And we had different pickups sections where there was different drivers that would drop us off and take us to the next station and so forth. And this last guy, after we crossed the border and we got into Pakistan, he took us for a rendezvous. we were lost in the, we thought we were lost in the desert. He had other plans. And we had no water, dehydrated. My mom and my brother were passed out. And it was only me and my dad. And this guy, because there's other things that goes on in those routes is a lot of human trafficking. Mm-hmm. And you got 3 kids, and you got a woman, and other people in the back of this pickup truck too. And luckily, we got the Pakistani police found us, and they gave us water. And I'll never forget this guy's face till this day. I remember looking up at him, and he was just looking down, and he looked at the driver, and he's like, "You know what? I'm gonna drive you guys to your next safe spot." That literally saved our lives.
How old were you at the time?
I was about 7 or 8. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty not fun. I'll say that.
Not fun, but fortuitous that you met that particular individual from Pakistan.
Yeah. The police there saved us. We went there. He took us to our next spot, and we claimed the asylum. And we lived in Pakistan for about almost 2 years before we came to the States to get our visas and so forth. Mm-hmm. But, parents at that time were, I think they were my age, 40, 43, somewhere around there. Store all over. Come to a country you don't speak the language.
Where did they start their journey in the U.S.?
We lived... Well, no, first it was in California before we went to Arizona.
Okay, not bad so far, depending on where you were in California.
Yeah, not a great place. It was Anaheim.
Well, depending on where she was in Arizona, too. She's got more of the stories coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, we come to the States, and we didn't have money. We didn't come for money. We spent all of our money, and we had...
they took all their gold.
Yeah, they took our gold. We had no gold. So... Not speaking the language, parents having to work from 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. at night. We lived in horrible neighborhoods in California, and they thought, well, you know what, we're going to move to Phoenix, to Arizona, so that our kids could have a better life, a better environment, not so gang-related environments. Yeah. And we moved to Glendale, Arizona. Not the best spot.
I mean, there are worse spots, but yes, maybe not a top-tier location. Sorry for everybody who lives in Glendale.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think if anyone listening would agree with me, it's not the best location. Yeah, and because of that, I would say I got into the bad groups and gang behaviors and started smoking at a very young age. And
don't you think it's also because your parents were absentee, though? Too?
Oh, yeah, nobody was there. The TV raised the way I learned how to speak English was watching New York gangster movies, like the Pacinos.
Not an uncommon tale, actually, from large groups of people who learned English from subtitles on kids' TV shows or shows like that. I've heard that one quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
She had a Italian gangster accent for her.
The Pacino.
That is spectacular. I wish that had survived.
I've had a lot.
She can whip it out, I think.
No, I've had a lot of people ask me, "Did you grow up in the East Coast?" I'm like, "Yeah, a little bit further east." Keep going, but yeah.
It's an interesting conversation around, the role and the impact that parents can have. Like, I totally understand people having to do what they have to do to make ends meet, but if you're not present to the best degree that you can be in your kids' lives, that void is going to be filled by other things.
That's right.
And you're going to have far less control than you would want to have, because I look at my own kids. I mean, I one of the things I strive to have with them is an open and honest relationship. And there are things that they don't share with me, just like there was things I don't share with my parents, or I didn't share with my parents when I was that age. But I try to be as present as humanly possible with the amount of time. It's still not perfect. I mean, it's 50% of the time my daughter at least is living with her mom, and so I have the impact that I can have. But yeah, the idle time for people of that age, surrounded by negative influence. I'm no detective by any stretch, but you can kind of start connecting those dots.
Yeah. It's not good, and I definitely took the wrong path for quite a while.
What got you out of the wrong path? What helped you change direction?
I removed myself. I got to really, yeah, I mean, I was just like on a destruction mode going downhill till I think I was about 19 or 20 years old. And I got into a lot of doing drugs and so forth that I just went to my parents and I said, I have to leave. I can't be here anymore. And because, you know, the environment in my home, that's all connected to coming to the past that I had, from where we all came from. And it's not easy when people have those traumas and crap that they go through, because then it creates the behaviors that they have, and it creates that environment that you're in. And I didn't want to have anything to do with it. You know, I left the country where I was actually closer. My grandma mostly raised us because mom was trying to work and dad was in prison. And then when we left, I didn't want to leave. I was like, I don't want to leave. She was like my mom type of thing. So, yeah, I removed myself. I went to my cousin in California. And at the time, she didn't know. I just told my parents, you guys have to take me there. Because I was doing so much drugs that I knew if I stayed there, I would have died. That would have been it. Because I had no desire to do anything different. And I couldn't. And they couldn't tell me what to do because they were never there to tell me what to do, you see?
Yeah.
So you can't start disciplining now. It's not going to work.
It's too late.
Yeah.
Well, at least you had the self-awareness and wherewithal to remove yourself from that situation. I would say that would put you more on the anomalous side. I think most people just end up, they feel like they have concrete shoes on and they can't leave.
Yeah.
Or don't. Actually, depending on how deep it gets their hooks into them, they don't want to.
Yeah. No, I get it. Trust me, I've been to the bottom of that side, and I totally understand. The thing that drove me the most to leave and to do something different, was I wanted to experience a life that was, you know, that didn't have this, that was new, that was somewhat normal. You know, that you see like on movies, but it's not really reality type of thing. So that's what drove me to leave. And thankfully, you know, cousin had no idea. My parents dropped me off there and they're like, well, she's just going to stay with you for a while. We're going to leave. And she's going, what? But she took me in and it was like a completely different life. And yet it still took me some time to get to where I am now.
Well, you got to tell the story of going to Belgium.
Which is,
because
I'm not great at geography. I believe it's the state over from Arizona.
It's right next door.
Just a little bit.
Just a hop, skip, and a jump. If
Yeah,
you will.
weather's kind of like here.
Yeah.
But
It's a little bit colder.
yeah, he said take him up to where we.
Yeah. I'm assuming a relationship took you to Belgium?
Yes.
Cautionary tale.
I know.
Yeah.
It was
Hindsight.
love.
Yeah.
Well, I thought it was anyway. Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, I got okay, so I'll link it back again to my past. The past that I had, I never wanted to get married. I never want to have kids. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. Because as a person, I wasn't even somewhere where I could say, okay, I can handle myself. Let alone handle another person.
Yeah.
Right? So then I got to this point where I was feeling a little bit better about myself, and I was working, and I've always worked, but doing something that was more productive and taking care of myself health-wise and this and that. And I thought, well, maybe I'll give, marriage a shot.
Yeah, perspective changes over time, People
Sure.
grow.
And I said, and I took family's advice. Oh, you should marry someone who's Persian, and you should marry someone who's Baha'i, and you should, And I'm like, yeah, this is going to be great. This is going to be fantastic, right? I found someone who was Persian, who was a Baha'i, who's a friend of the family. I'm like, you can't lose. This is going to be fantastic. And he lived in Belgium, and I thought, that's even better. I could leave all this behind and go somewhere totally brand new, right? Because I'm not tied or attached to my parents. I could leave them. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I'm used to that. It's all right. So, and he had kids too. So I did that, and man, it turned out to be a disaster. I mean, it was horrible. It was everything for a first marriage. Someone would go, "What the heck are you doing?" Like, he had his exes coming and going. His ex-wife would come over all the time, and his kids would come and go. His parents lived with him, and they would come and go. And I'm just, I thought,
How much time did you spend with this man before you got married?
Yeah, good question.
Very good question. Not very long.
I feel like this was arranged by the family.
Yeah, it was.
At least it was queued up by the family.
It was queued up, and it was. I have to take responsibility because it was arranged by my own idea of what everyone was telling me. I'm like,
Yeah.
they painted a perfect picture, and I'm like, sure.
But you probably didn't spend much time in Belgium or in that living situation or having an understanding of what you were going to be dropping into?
No.
Holy shit. Okay.
So, being the type of person I am, I thought, you know what? It's okay. Maybe the problem is me. I need to change. I will adjust to your ways, and I will adjust to your lifestyle.
I don't know that person, by the way. I don't know how she says that's who she is because I don't know.
Yeah,
that
well,
person
because
very well.
after that, I was like, screw that. I'm not doing that again.
I was going to say, she went on this journey of discovery before meeting you.
Yeah.
This is now V2.
Yeah, right.
I'm not doing that again. But yeah, so I did that, and unfortunately, it turned out nothing would work, and it was bad because it got physically abusive, and it was verbally abusive, which is worse. And again, I know a lot of women, because I did it myself. You think it's still your fault. You're not doing something right.
God, I wish we could change that mentality.
Yeah.
It's insidious in a lot of ways. I mean, I don't think it's unhealthy. Let's say something doesn't go well in your life, to look into the mirror and try to identify things that you could have done better. But to think that being on the receiving end of abuse of any kind, to self-justify that, to me is a bridge that I wish we would somehow create a way that we couldn't let people cross.
Yeah.
Because that's how people end up staying. How
Yeah.
long did you stay in that place?
Well, the total time that I stayed there was 5 years. And all of this happened within the first year and a half. So endured it for another 4.
Yeah. I am no expert when it comes to abuse, but I've heard it described as every time there's an escalation, even a micro escalation, that becomes the new standard. So
Yeah.
what starts off is what, oh, that's weird, an edge to somebody's voice that I wasn't expecting. But the next thing you know, that's their new baseline standard. So it shifts a little more
Yeah.
and a little bit more. And again, just the insidious nature of those types of situations. Yeah, that's rough. I'm sorry that you had to go through that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And
Gave her a lot of strength, though.
sure.
Yeah.
Not that,
but at what
again,
cost?
not condoning.
Yeah.
But if I may interject, I believe, our relationship is so 180 contrasted to that. But the fact of what we've gone through together for the last 11 years has given her that. She's got that backbone and that endurance,
Well, also the unwillingness to tolerate that behavior. Again, it changes your perspective of the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the tipping point for you to eject from that situation?
The tipping point. Yeah. I remember the night very clearly. I had gone to a point where I tried everything, and I knew that I tried everything, and I just said, it's just not going, and it ended up on a last evening where it got into a physical again, and I thought, what are you doing? Why are you even? This guy, he was a big guy. He's on top of you trying to strangle you, and you're gonna stay? Like, what are you doing? So then I got on the phone and I called my dad. And I've never told, nobody in my family had any idea what was going on. I didn't tell anybody.
And he's a friend of the family. too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, and I knew, because I knew the moment I would say something, that was it. I had to pack it up and go. That was it. So when I called him, he was like, you get on the flight tonight. Hang up the phone. You're leaving now. And I said, okay, I'm out. Yeah. But it was hard. And I think one of the reasons a lot of women perhaps stay is because it's scary to leave and then have to come back and start over.
Yeah.
You know, to start a whole new life. And I had to come back to the States again and, you know, go through basically starting all over again. And I didn't want to do that. Go back, now I got to go live with my parents again.
Yeah, that unknown is almost, not that it should be, but almost scarier than the environment that you're living in, because at least you kind of have some idea. But God, what a fucked up mental exercise to have to choose between those two.
Yeah.
I think if I was in your dad's shoes, I probably would wear that man's penis like a necklace. Yeah, that would be my property. He could maybe be living, but I would have that. It would be a talisman of some kind, maybe in a mason jar. It's hard to say. I'm just sharing my truth with you. You know, I'm the most normal person I know, for clarity. So, yeah, that's rough. It's man. So many layers to that bowl of spaghetti. The family ties. I'm glad that you got out of there. I'm glad that.
So am I.
Yeah, that you. There are a lot of people who I think know that they should leave, and they don't.
Yeah.
And that sucks. I hate any. One of the things I've determined about myself is that I absolutely hate predators. It's one of the things that I struggle with. Like bullies, to me. It doesn't go over well. Unfortunately, I had a job where, I mean, there's a way you could look at it where, like, you were actually getting to, not in a schoolyard by any stretch, but you could go approach the schoolyard bully and actually do something about it. And it was fulfilling, to say the least.
Yeah.
So, how long after you were back, or how much time between when you got back to the U.S. when you two met?
I think it was a year.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it was about a year. Let's see.
Love at first sight, obviously. I suspect there were doves flying around. I feel wind chimes were potentially playing.
Oh, my goodness.
Arias were being sung.
I wish I could say that. God, okay, so the way I met him was that somebody signed me up for some network marketing thing, and I'm trying to start my life again, so I'm looking for different careers and so forth. And I went to one of their meetings, and in that meeting they said, oh, we're going to have a guest speaker from The Secret. And I thought, oh, that might be fun. I might check it out. So the day he was speaking, I went in. I took my younger brother with me. And I'm sitting there waiting to see who this speaker is supposed to be. I have no idea who it is. And then he walks in with the whole camera crew because they were filming his documentary then. So he walks in and I look at him and I don't recognize him at all. He's got long hair and a goatee and I'm like, he's not from The Secret. Who's he?
Straight out of prison. He's just, you know.
Yeah, my hair was down on my
Yeah,
shoulders.
he looked like a thug.
Why not?
Yeah.
But he comes in and I look and then he looked at me and he smiled. And I thought, oh, it's the genie guy. He's got this part in The Secret where he says, like, your wish is my command, whatever. And I thought, okay, cool. But then he went on stage and did his thing. And what he delivered on stage, plus the way he came in, was it was like, I want that vibrance, I could say, in my life. I didn't have it. I was a broken person. I really was.
And so was I, quite frankly.
Then you were, yeah. Or else we wouldn't have been able to connect.
That's what connected us. You know, I think we as human beings are more connected by our pain than we are by our successes and achievements.
I think there's more pain in life than there is success. I think one of the biggest mistakes we have made is trying to teach people that life should be easy.
Right.
And to try to make discomfort a medically treatable condition.
Yeah.
I mean, I look at anything in value of my life, anything of value. I have worked for it and clawed for it and sweat for it and bled for it and sacrificed. And I have some amazing friends and I've gotten some amazing gifts. And it's not that I don't value those things, but there is no comparison between something that is presented to you absent of any of those things we just talked about, and something that the 20-year overnight success. I mean, I'm sorry, there's just, for me, all of the goods, and people can define whatever the goods is for them, the goods come through consistent hard work, and I expect it to be uncomfortable. I actually get really nervous if it's not. And that could be a character flaw in myself.
No,
like,
I
what's
don't
going
think-
on here? Like, there's a trapdoor around here somewhere.
I don't think it is. Isn't that a Navy SEAL saying "embrace the suck"? Am I right with that? Is that?
Or is that?
I mean, there's so many dumb catchphrases from that community.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stay hard. Like, get after it. I'm like, God, you guys need to like have a donut. Take it easy. How about get after it occasionally? Get after it most of the time. How about everything in moderation to include moderation, you weirdos?
I love the word sacrifice, oddly enough, because if you trace the etymology of it back to its origins, it literally translates to make sacred. And so, again, this is not popular in all circles, but when you sacrifice, what you're doing is placing something of lower value on the altar of life for something of a higher value. You're sacrificing something of a lower value for something of a higher value. And that's what it takes. And so, pain is a great connector of us. Pain is the mother of all growth. Pain signals us that, hey, something is wrong. If you have a pain in your elbow, it's not telling you to suffer. It's telling you, hey, something's wrong with your elbow. You need to do something differently. And so that's what connected us. I believe, is we both were in this cesspool of pain, and we resonated with each other. And so, I think together we were able to bond and pull each other out of it. You can either stay in it, or you can rise out of it and above it. And obviously, that's what we should do, I believe.
Yeah, there's another aspect, and I don't have a good explanation, but a concern of mine in the society we're living in. I'll use Instagram as an example, a tool that I use. I'm a part of it willingly. And it's people showing their best filter of their best day from the best angle with the best lighting. And of course, not everybody. Broadly, people are not up there like, hey, I had the worst day of my life. Just wanted to share that with you guys. Here's my bank account. It says -50. Just bounce the check. That's not what most people use Instagram for. But it presents this picture that other people are not in pain and they're not suffering. So then you feel like, well, I need to kind of shut up about mine. And I don't know if that is healthy in any way, shape, or form.
It's not healthy.
I think COVID showed a lot of the COVID time period. Let's isolate people, reduce their ability to communicate, and then let's just take a look at the suicide trends during that time period. I don't think any of those things are good for humanity. And when people are presented constantly with this person's life is great and this one is perfect, but I'm like really struggling, okay, I'm just going to shut up and I'm not going to talk about it. And I feel like almost all humans deal with the same issues largely, maybe different degrees, scope, size, and scale, but you're not alone. And I think when you start feeling like you are, that is the door to a hallway that is not going to lead anywhere beneficial in your life.
Totally agree. And that's, I believe, and Bersabeh can either corroborate this or not, but I believe when she says he was so raw and real when she heard me present, that's exactly why, because if you look at traditional spiritual circles or traditional personal development circles, everything's great. I've got the house in Beverly Hills, and I've got this, and I got the plane. Look at my plane. Look at my watch. Look at my this. Look at my that. Well, it's just not true, and it creates more pathology and insecurity than it does performance and improvement, because you start to believe, what's wrong with me? And I'll tell you, Andy, there's nothing wrong with you, because I've been behind the curtain with all of those people. And I've heard them totally lose it emotionally and curse out their employees and not pay their bills and all these kinds of things, and then get on stage and everything's perfect. And so I made a decision coming back in that what I wanted to do, and if you if any of your viewers have watched the movie Enlighten Us, I think I achieved it. I really wanted people to be able to peer behind the curtain and see me being broken and see me in pain and maybe know where I used to be and say, hey, this guy is real. And maybe if he can go through that, I can go through this. And that's what unites us as human beings, I believe, versus the, hey, stand on top of the mountain. Come on up here. The air is pristine.
If you just follow my 13-step program, of which I'll charge you for each of the steps,
that's right.
You too can have this view.
That's right. That's right. Oh, I can't. They're foreclosing on my house. Oh, that's all right. You can do it. Just come on.
Yeah,
so,
but that's the other thing I think that connected us or attracted me to you is because before you wouldn't have been able to do that.
No.
If you didn't experience what he experienced, he wouldn't have been able to connect with me, given the past that I had.
You may not have been able to connect with him either.
Yeah.
Had you not gone through what you went through.
Yeah.
I think, my divorce process was almost 2 years long, and I'm always super it was, what would be the technical term? Shitty, actually, would be the technical term.
That's
of the
a great
process.
term.
Yeah, I could string a few more of those words together. I'm always careful talking about my divorce because I have a platform and my ex doesn't, so I always talk in broad terms and don't talk about anything specific. But I can talk about it from my experience. It was the lowest point in time in my life. And people will constantly look at what I used to do in the military, and and I don't want to diminish, it was a unique thing that I did, for sure. Not that many people, people forget this. They're like, oh, not that many people make it through. Not that many people want to go in the first place. So let's not forget that. Maybe we're a little twisted even for the desire to do that job. Is anybody talking about that? Not enough.
Yeah.
So it's unique. Not many people make it through. And it prepares you to do the job well. An argument can be made it doesn't prepare you for the rest of your life. And if you tie your identity to it, a lot of bad shit can come from that. So people would think, oh, you did that. You can tackle anything that comes at you in your life. And there were days in my divorce that were so much harder than anything that I ever did in SEAL training or in the real world post 9/11. The lowest, conversations with myself for hours and days of, do I even deserve to be a father to my kids? Wow. Do I deserve an opportunity to potentially at some point in time find somebody else, to not be by myself? Or would I be serving the world better to become the second Unabomber out in a shack, which, by the way, he was from Montana. I don't know what that says about Montana or him, but he had a shack and he was blowing shit up all over the place. But just, self-confidence at an all-time low, feelings of self-worth at an all-time low. And then eventually finding my wife and the shift and change in how I view the world because I went through that low point, I think gives me the ability to be a better person for her, which is what she deserves. I don't have the vocabulary to describe how much of an amazing woman she is, but I don't know if I could be the husband I want to be for her without going through those low points. That's lost. It's lost on a lot of people.
It is. And I think, I don't know, I have a limited perspective on a lot of ex-military, and there's a lot of guys out there that are getting some airtime. And I'm so happy to hear you say that, because there's more to it than just hoorah.
Yeah.
There really is.
Easy.
Not everything is hoorah.
Yeah.
And I know for me, like, I remember I was driving down Eastern Avenue in Nevada, and I was talking to her on the phone, and she was having a really hard time. She smoked for how many years?
24 years.
24 years.
Don't tell me you vape now in place of it.
No, I quit. This is my 7th year.
Good.
No,
Right.
vaping is smoking. I'm sorry.
How dare you? It's the healthy alternative.
It's like, I'm a vegetarian, but
It's
I
the
only eat
worst
fish.
alternative.
A fish is not a vegetable.
Well,
I'm
and
sorry.
eggs.
And eggs.
Because eggs don't have feelings. So.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
And I'm not a vegetarian, by the way. Don't take me wrong. I'm very much into meat. But nonetheless, I was driving down Eastern, and I was still in this And that's something that shifted for me a lot, is I was in this just do it mode. I didn't have a lot of compassion. I was, hey, if I can do it, you can do it. Why can't you do it? And that's not the right come from in all circumstances. Sometimes it is, but not in all cases. And for our younger generation, they need some of that in some cases. But I was talking to her on the phone, and she had asked me to help her quit smoking. And it was tough. I mean, we went through hell.
Yes, I took him through hell.
I mean, her much more than me, but I was there experiencing it.
It was not fun.
And getting off the cigarettes, which is a drug, and alcohol, which is a drug, and the demons start coming out, because she started that at such an early age, and you can talk about this, to suppress those things. And so now that she doesn't have this suppressor anymore, they start coming out, and I'm there, and I'm like, man, I don't know if I can hang, but yes, I'm going to do this, because historically, I was not the poster boy for relationships. I just wasn't. I couldn't do drama, and if it got too difficult, I'm a man on a mission, and I haven't got time for this, and I'm out. And I'm like, at some point you got to grow up, and you got to change that behavior. And so she said to me, and it shifted in an instant. She said to me on the phone, I was being kind of hoorah, if I may, and saying, coming at her hard. And she said, I don't know what you're doing right now, but it's not working. And it's not that profound of a sentence, but it just hit me with profundity. And I thought, okay, wait a second. If you only have one card to play, you don't have a full deck.
Yeah, if you're a hammer, all you see is nails.
That's right. That's Maslow. And so I backed up, and I said, James, you can't do this in all cases with all people at all times. And so I decided to come from a much more compassionate perspective and a much more understanding and loving perspective. And I don't think we would have made it had I not.
True.
But I was still not an excuse. I take full responsibility, because that had been kind of my MO. But I was still in a lot of pain myself, and so hurt people hurt other people.
Yeah, it's true.
And I was projecting that on her. Hey, I got stuff going on too, so just come on, suck it up. And
those type of problems, like if you find the person that's motivated by that shit's easy. The hammer nail scenario, yeah, being a carpenter is fun. I'll hit this nail really hard. Sometimes you need a Phillips head screwdriver. Sometimes you need a bandsaw. It's like,
right.
A hammer doesn't work very well as a bandsaw. I've tried it because I forgot one at work one time. It was a very ragged cut that didn't fit well where I needed it to go. But it's the same thing with people. Like if you only have one tool, you're going to be really successful in the narrow bandwidth of people where that tool works. And for everybody else, it's going to be wildly unsuccessful.
And that's the part, to digress all the way back to one of the original questions you asked me, that's the part of the old me that I don't like.
Yeah.
Is I didn't really have a full spectrum of tools. And because I hadn't experienced enough pain. Pain is the mother of all growth. I don't care what anyone says. I believe that firmly, and I've experienced that. I'm talking from experience, not something I read in a book. And it opened up my heart, and it started to allow me to see a broader band of things and to have a different come from. Because the last thing I wanted was someone to tell me to suck it up when my whole world was crumbling.
Yeah.
And I felt like the government was coming after me with both barrels loaded, and my own government and my own country and all those things. It's not what I needed.
Yeah. What are you guys trying to do now?
We really we're committed to creating independent thinkers. And we both believe, and obviously she can talk to herself, but that is much needed in today's world. Most of us accept things at face value. And when I was growing up, if you saw it in mainstream media, it was true.
Yeah.
You know, if your school systems told you, it was true.
Or at least trustworthy.
That's right. That's right. And so what we're wanting to help people do is think for themselves, to be critical thinkers, to be independent thinkers, apart from the controlling narrative. Because let's face it, a lot of the controlling narrative is just untrue. And the things we've been told and conditioned into are just untrue. And we're seeing evidence all around us. And it was much easier for Bersabeh to accept 2020, for instance, and many of the things that happened than it was for me, because she grew up in a country where, okay, the government is trying to manipulate you and control you and screw you over. That's just what they do. And I didn't. But going through, I believe one of the gifts I was given, literally by life and by God, was to go through what I went through to help people in these times to say, not everything is as it appears. And so don't take my word for it, but do your own research. You know, dig deep, and don't look in the top 3 searches on Google either, because that
sounds exhausting.
Yeah, it is. And that's why most
You mean
people...
I have to go to the second page? That's another click.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably a scroll. 2-finger scroll click.
Yeah, I know.
Forget it.
And that's why most people don't do it. Right?
Where do you start people on this journey of critical thinking?
I think you can't give what you don't have. And so the first thing you have to do is you have to truly understand why you do what you do. And I'll use a real mundane example. You know, if I was to ask most people, would you rather have a 750 BMW or a Bentley? Most people, particularly younger people, and the mass majority would say, "Oh, Bentley." Well, why?
The clear answer is a truck.
Yeah. Obviously, I have a 4Runner, you know, and I don't care to have anything else. And it's an older one, and I don't care. It's a great car. It still has a 6-cylinder, and the new ones have a 4-cylinder. But nonetheless, you know, why do you want a Bentley? Because the reality is that they're about the same car, same chassis. The accoutrements are a little bit different, but the price is astronomically different. And so why do you want a Bentley? Why do you think that's so valuable? Why do you want to become a, quote, public figure? You know, why? Start asking yourself. And when you really start to peel it apart, what you'll recognize is that you are the byproduct of other people's habitual way of thinking. Most of your ideas, most of what you call thinking is not thinking. It's just regurgitating something that's been handed to you from an outside source at a very early age. And so what we do is attempt to teach people, first and foremost, you want to change your relationship, change yourself. You want to change your neighborhood, change yourself. You want to change your country, change yourself. Start because you can't give what you don't have. And so when you work on you first and understand why you do what you do and come to real clarity on what's valuable to you, what are your morals, what are your principles, and make sure they're yours, because the immediate answer in all probability is not yours. It's someone else's. And if we go back to what I talked about early with the vertical relationship and the horizontal, the sacred and the secular, when we lose that vertical relationship, which is metaphoric, with God or with higher principles, with a controlling principle, then all we have to judge ourselves for morality and for principles and for values is looking around us. And that's what Bersabeh had in a neighborhood where she looked around at her and drugs were okay, and gang behavior was okay, and smoking was the big deal, because I'm looking on a horizontal level versus going back to fundamentals. Does that make sense to you?
What aspects of society are you guys seeing that worry you the most? Critical thinking is one I think is probably, I don't know. I don't even want to rate it top 3 or top 5, but for me, critical thinking ability, I think, would separate a lot of the bullshit through the filter. What else are you guys seeing that gives you cause for concern?
Cause for concern. Well, I would say to add to his thing, which I think is important because a lot of people can relate to this, is that a lot of people who feel that they're broken or they've experienced a tremendous amount of trauma or pain, and they think there's something wrong with them, and they can't have something that is a life that's fulfilling and new for them. We help there too, given the experiences that we have, is to clean up that stuff so that they can experience a fulfilling life. I think it's important for that person to know, you can turn it around.
One of the saddest things I've ever heard somebody say is they felt like they didn't deserve to live a fulfilling and happy life.
It's common.
Yeah, it's very common.
A mental prison.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, you're the warden of that fucking prison.
Yeah.
And you can move the walls and change the window and unlock the door.
Yeah. Well, it comes from the experience of feeling like sometimes you feel shameful. This has scarred me because it happened. It defines who I am, but it doesn't. These are your experiences. But the concerning thing, I think, I'll throw it back to you.
Well, I think, if I may, my New York Times bestseller is titled Harmonic Wealth. And if you ask 99% of the people to define wealth, they're going to say money. But that's not true. If you trace the origins of the word wealth back to its origins, then it literally translates as well-being. It's not money. And so I will submit to you, I've worked with more multimillionaires and even billionaires, and most people who have a tremendous amount of money are not wealthy because it's well-being. And this may be contrarian to some of the viewers, but it's true nonetheless in my experience. The only people who worry more about money than the financially poor are the financially rich. And you say, how is that, James? Because the more you have, the more you have to lose. And people who have a tremendous amount of lifestyle, quote, are constantly worrying. There's exceptions, but this is the rule, is that they worry that they're going to be able to sustain that and make enough to keep it. And so what good is a pile of money if you can't enjoy it? It's no good.
The great philosopher of our time, Brad Pitt, in the documentary Fight Club, the things that you own end up owning you.
Yeah, there's a lot of gems in that.
Yeah.
In that
Unfortunately,
show.
he didn't write that line.
Yeah.
But he delivered it well.
So he did. And so harmonic wealth is a state of harmony and well-being. And I think this is a big problem, to answer your long answer to your question. In the 5 key areas, I call those the 5 pillars of your life: financial, relational, mental, physical, spiritual. And when all those are in harmony, not balance, balance is rubbish. There's a lot of people talk about balance. But, Annie, look at a scale in perfect balance. Now tell me what's happening here. Nothing.
Yeah.
In perfect balance, nothing happens. Right?
Most of the people I know who have been wildly successful for at least short periods of time were very unbalanced. Their goal was to eventually work back towards that homeostasis, but I think that term of everything being balanced, like you said, I don't buy into that. There are going to be times where you need to be uncomfortable being unbalanced, and you just have to understand what you're trading for what you're giving up.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree, and I would add to that, you can't totally neglect. And so that's why I chose the term harmonic wealth, is that harmony is dynamic. It's more like a piece of music. Sometimes you're leading with the drums, sometimes it's the bass guitar, sometimes it's the lead guitar, but they all come together to form this tapestry called the music. And so if you have the financial, relational, mental, physical, spiritual, where you run into problems is, yes, you're gonna be out of balance, because nothing happens in perfect balance. But just because you spend 10 hours at work doesn't mean you need to spend 10 hours in the gym to be healthy. Thank God, right?
Yeah.
Be
a long day.
That's right. But that's balance in a truest sense. And so harmony is this ebb and flow. And so you have to, sometimes you're working more on your business, sometimes on your relationship, sometimes on your spiritual connection, sometimes on your physicality, and sometimes on your mental and emotional state. And yet what you have to realize is that you can't ever totally neglect one of those 5. They don't have to be equally contributed to. You need to spend time with your kids. But that doesn't mean it's equal to the amount of time you spend at work necessarily. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. It ebbs and flows. And so I think that's one of the big problems is in this secular world, we believe that money's going to make me happy. Well, take it from a guy, I wasn't one of the richest guys in the world, but I was supposedly north of 20 million, and it was going like that. And was I happy? Well, I was on the road 250 days a year. I was sleeping 4 hours a night. I was in a home all by myself. I didn't have a lovely partner, and wife, and on and on and on and on. I was eating airport food. God help me.
It's a rough road to hoe.
Yeah. Prison's worse, but
sure. I guess there is a sliding scale.
There's always contrast.
Yeah.
But so that's really our come from is harmonic wealth, and we have the book, and in fact we'd love to give your viewers a free copy of an ebook if you're interested.
What would be the best mechanism for them to be able to do so?
Oh, just go harmonicwealthglobal.com/book.
How would you know that they're coming from the podcast, though? Now, many people, well, I guess if they were to do that, that would be from the podcast.
Yeah.
I'll let you guys figure out the back end. I'm not a specialist in that.
Nor am I.
Yeah. Between now and when the episode comes out, maybe we can find a solution to that.
And we have, we have a 2-day live event where we talk about harmonic wealth, and it's on Zoom. But nonetheless, I really believe that's a big solution if people say, particularly in economically trying times, in which we're in. Yeah. Let's face it, it's tough.
May not be getting better anywhere in the near future either.
Not this year.
I mean, I look at just in Kalispell. The median income here is for a single family home about $40,000 a year. I think dual income is maybe $70,000. Price of money right now is insane when it comes to borrowing money to buy a house. The cost of real estate skyrocketed during kind of the influx during COVID, and there are real economic. And from somebody who sells coffee in a coffee shop, the cost of goods sold is not going down. And we have these conversations like, how much of this should we bear as the business owner, and how much of this do we have to pass on to the consumer? Yeah. I didn't drink coffee until my late 20s. But I don't think I would have bought one in my late 20s if it was $6 or $7 for a drip coffee or a latte. Mm-hmm. I mean, you could spend $15 on a drink in some of these coffee shops. Granted, you need to get a little wild with your order, and it's going to have like 15 lines. But there are people every day in there that do it. I'm looking at these thinking, it's $15 a drink.
Yeah,
I will take your money. Don't get me wrong. I am a fan of capitalism. I'll take your money. If you get one of these every day, do you understand how much you are spending?
Yeah, multiply it over 365.
Yeah.
No, I get it, and so it's not going to get any better. And the whole thing is, we have such a myopic view in our world, and I'll talk about it. It's worldwide right now, but certainly in our country. Well, we're going to raise the minimum wage. Okay, as a business owner, what's that mean?
It means the cost of everything else is going up.
It means coffee's going up, or it means I'm going to have to lay some people off because I can't.
Or clothes.
But no, we don't think about that. Raise the minimum wage, the younger generation. Yeah, I'm going to make $20 an hour.
Yeah, and here's a $32 cup of coffee.
Right.
I mean, I'm sorry.
There's no margin.
We're the ones, electricity, gas, cost of the physical infrastructure, paying back an investor. All of these things are real. You're going to force me to pay people $20-some an hour. My choice is now to serve $25 coffee or close the doors.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I guess that's my choice to make. But
we wrestle with that in our business all the time. I mean, we have Harmonic Wealth Weekend coming up April 13th and 14th on Zoom. And people, when we used to do it live in the room, people paid $1,297 to attend.
It's a very bizarre number for you to set the price at, but I like it.
$1,297. And they were doing it all day long. Now we're doing this one for $47.
Yeah.
And it's a loss leader because we've got other streams of income, and we're wanting to help people as much as we can in these troubling times. But you can't do that in every area. You just can't. And so
Yeah, or else we'd have to close up shop.
we'd have to close up shop, and we'd go back
I'd
and
love
forth.
to
with-
do that, to be able to do that for people, but we just can't.
Yeah.
You can't. And so my point is this. If I had not been working on those 5 pillars when the tsunami hit my life, I would have drowned. Because when I stood in the desert in 2013, in the condition I was in, $20 million in debt, homeless, alone, horrible physical condition, I went a deep dive inside, and I asking myself a lot of probing questions, and I came to the conclusion, your true wealth, James, is not what you have. Your true wealth is what you're left with when all you have is gone. And unbeknownst to most people, true wealth is not just money. It's what we've talked about, harmonic wealth. And so, again, another question. And I said, you know what? I still have the mental and emotional wealth that I always had, maybe more so, given what I've been through.
Yeah.
I still have the spiritual connection to God that I always had, maybe even more so than given what I've been through. I'm just experiencing a temporary setback financially, relationally, and physically. And so I have everything I need to get back up. And my point is, when you get that, now that we're in these troubling times, then no, you may not become a millionaire or billionaire. You may not have your own plane. It's okay. It really is, because you have maybe a great relationship, you have a connection to God, you have physical health, and so you're focusing on all 5 of those things versus just the financial piece, which society drives us so much towards.
I've made so many dumb decisions in my life about money. About 10 years ago, I got to the point where I realized I don't actually even want to look at it as one of the primary determining factors of why I make a decision.
I think that's wise.
I took some missteps to get there.
Yeah.
It certainly wasn't wisdom, unless you call wisdom learning a little bit from repeated mistakes that were often similar. Like, well, it didn't work last time. I know what I'll do. I'll double down.
I'll
That's
do it
what
again.
it is. When that doesn't
And
work,
work harder.
quadruple
And
down.
work harder.
Yeah. I need to risk more. That's what it is. When I got out of the military, I had an easier off-ramp because I had been moonlighting for a company on the weekends. It was a strength and conditioning company, so I kind of knew what I was going to do, and it provided me more money than I was making when I was in the military when I got out. And at the time, it was a good amount of money. They were paying me $150,000 a year for a guy leaving the military. Fantastic money. San Diego doesn't go as far, but nothing to complain about. And I was miserable. And I got to the point where I actually quit that job and had nothing else on a burner. I went from $150K a year to zero, and I couldn't have been happier. I literally went into our garage and started selling shit on Craigslist, and just started saying yes to every opportunity. I kind of had to, because maybe I should have thought that one through a little bit more, but maybe I could have worked on a plan B before nuking plan A. But it led me down all the paths that I did post-military. It's where I dipped my toes into the water of being a sponsored athlete. And even then, the enticing thing was, what are they willing to pay you? That's what I was thinking about primarily. And now, 10 plus years past that, if people hit me up or brands hit me up and the first thing they want to talk about money, no, I won't do it. I'm not interested in, well, like I said, I wish the road to where I was at wasn't full of so many potholes. But the transmission on the car is definitely fucked from the path that I took and the shocks. But to me, wealth is just time. It's I want to make enough money that I can choose to do what I want to with my time. It just made so many stupid decisions about a number on a screen. It's not even real. I just want to be able to do what I want to with my time, and I want to be more net positive to the world than negative when I leave. That's literally all I want to do. It has made decisions in life so much easier, so less complex. And it's like, yeah, I'd love to have a jet, but not that much.
Yeah.
I'd love
I
to
went
have
down that road.
a vacation home in the south of France. Not that I've ever been there or even know what that would look like, but
Sounds good, though.
sounds good. But then you start thinking, like, I got to get there and all the things that are associated with
Taxes. And
that. How about I just enjoy where I'm at with the people that I'm at, and I have the time to do what I want. Mm-hmm. I mean, what is more valuable than that? I can't think of anything.
There's not. Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. Yeah. And I think part of that is the wisdom of age, and dare I say that, I can speak for me. You're still fairly young.
Not in comparison to what I used to be.
Yeah, well,
funny how that works.
Who is? Yeah, it goes real quickly. You'll be where I am, before you know it.
No, it comes from learning mistakes.
It does. So the potholes maybe aren't that bad after all. I mean,
they don't feel great when you're hitting them and the head goes off the steering wheel.
Right.
Next time though, it's like, let's turn the wheel, avoid the pothole.
Yeah. But if we can help people. Long answer again to your original question. If Bersabeh and I can help people through our mistakes and through our experiences to avoid some of those potholes, then that's really.
Or just give them the point of reference that you got two people here that went through hard times like you have. You can do it too.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this the other day. I mean, what are the value of experiences to an individual if you can't figure out a way to impact others' life with it? I mean, obviously it would have the value on the person, but that's going to end with you.
Right.
You can do amazing, really cool things in your life, and maybe the only way to make that cooler is if it can have an impact on somebody else's life. That's the tougher bridge.
Yeah.
Still trying to figure out how to do that, but you guys, I mean, you're taking what you've been through and changing other people's life with it. I mean, it's perfect.
And they had to be willing to change.
Yeah, that's
and
a
they
tough
had to be
one.
willing to do the work.
Also a tough one.
We can't do it for them. And there's so
7
many
minute
times.
abs. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
This is a 3-step process.
There's so many times, Andy, where it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
If you would just. It's so clear to me, given my history and where I sit, of where you are and why you are, and if you just.
But it's hard work. It really is hard work.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I've landed. It's supposed to be hard work.
Easy and great cannot coexist in the same space. They just can't.
They'll always point you towards the white elephant or the black elephant, whatever the ridiculously statistically anomalous. Like, okay, Elon Musk is real. I get it. But he also went through a lot of, or maybe, I don't know. Somebody who was born into royalty. Like, if you want to use the one dude on earth that got dealt that hand as what's normal, you're going to have some problems in life.
Yeah.
Yes, it exists. Not for the rest of us.
That's right.
Yeah.
And guess what? You're incredibly blessed, even in this country right now. When I've done a lot of work in Peru, in the Andes Mountains, back and forth for years studying, and when I haven't been there in years, but at the time I was going, the average annual income was about $18,000 a year. So, if you want to compare yourself to someone, compare yourself to that.
Yeah.
And people go, oh, yeah, but the standard of living, James, is way different. Exactly. Look at their standard of living. It's horrific.
Yeah.
And look at what you have here in this country. And so for all of its foibles and all of its downsides, if you can grasp those 5 pillars, financial, relational, mental, physical, spiritual, and say, that's what my life is about, and really focus on all of them. I'm not saying money's not important. It gives you the foundation to build to higher standards of wealth in the other areas. But it really makes everything else shift for you in a positive way.
I agree. We've been at it for like 2 hours, 45 minutes.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
What's the best way for people to be able to find you? And if they are compelled by what we've been talking about, get in contact with you guys and kind of go down that path.
Well, we're all over social media.
Yeah. Doesn't it suck?
Yes.
Well, I've had.
Yes, it does.
We've had 3. I've had 3 social media accounts shut down.
You have to start over.
Started over
Not
from
an
scratch.
uncommon tale.
Yeah, because I was going against controlling narrative, especially during COVID.
Well, I hope you learned your lesson, and now you should only say what
Yeah,
you're
no, I don't
You
think
better
I
speak
did.
the truth.
But I got to speak the truth.
How wild was that information coming out, the deep level of connectivity between the government and social media platforms?
Right.
What the actual fuck?
Yeah.
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 It wasn't as shocking for me, given what I've been through, as maybe it was for you. I don't know. I mean, it's still shocking. It's still very disappointing.
I always remind myself, if the service is free, then you're the commodity.
Mm.
So you're playing, like, Instagram is free, even though
That's
those
right.
fuckers catch me with ads all the time.
Yeah.
Google's free.
I was in bed last night and bought a metal pillbox. I don't need a pillbox, for clarity. And my wife is looking at me. She goes, "Why did you hit the shop now button?" I'm like, "Did you see the smooth design of the pillbox? I fucking bought 2 of them." So it's free. They get ad dollars. So, God, my phone is definitely listening, because it serves me up ads of things that I need.
Yeah.
In that moment.
Of course it's listening.
Not in life, but in that moment,
Yeah.
I need it. Like, oh, you guys are sneaky. No, if it's free, that's the thing that people forget. You're going to have to play by their rules. What surprised me was the level of connectivity between the platform and the government in one particular side of the narrative. Like, I knew I was playing on their platform rules. Like, Instagram has always been, I don't want to speak for them, but if you put up posts with firearms in it, it's going to trend in a particular direction.
Right.
It seemed that the data supports that. It's like, okay, if I play on your platform and that's what your platform doesn't like, that's my choice. But like keyword searches and wanting to know everybody, I'm like, oh, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wasn't even doing the government's doing this. None of that stuff. The posts I was doing during COVID were take vitamin D, eat healthy, work out daily. Take
Sound like
care.
a terrorist.
Yeah.
Build your
I know.
Social terrorism here.
Yeah,
That's
build
where
your
I come
immune,
from. I called it.
build your immune system. Take vitamin C. Boom, gone.
And all of
Against
those
community
things-
standards.
All of those things people have direct control over. And I wonder if that's why they wanted it taken down. Like vitamin D3 is an incredibly regulatory hormone, specifically for men as we age.
That's right.
It's just good to take in general, COVID or not, just for overall general
That's right.
health.
Take it every day.
Eating healthy. How about extending your lifetime? Your lifestyle or lifetime. Like if you have kids, my goal is to be able to play with my kids for as long as possible, whatever activities they want to do. It doesn't come from being sedentary and eating like a garbage disposal and hiding inside and not getting vitamin D. Like, yeah, that's like sound just advice.
Yeah. So on Instagram, speaking of Instagram, you can't find
Currently,
me.
right now, until you get shut off again, obviously.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can't find
maybe
me.
not mention it on here, okay?
Yeah.
Put your business one up there. Where can they find you for the business specific?
Harmonic Wealth Global.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Harmonic Wealth Global. But no, we're out, and both of us, we're on X and we're all over social media. But the website is harmonicwealthglobal.com, and then we'd love to give all of your viewers a copy of the
Okay. We can figure out a way
Times
to
bestseller.
put it in the show notes, a link
Sure.
to it. Whatever. That's easy.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's the best way. And if we can help and support, that's what we do. We'd love to do it. We'd be honored.
What do you guys want to close out with? I'll leave you both with the last word. You can do it collectively, individually. Up to you.
I'll leave it to the professional speaker here.
All right. No pressure.
I think you should. No, I think you should.
Thank
do
you for tuning into Clear Hot. This was Andy.
I think you should do
Until
your-
next week.
Your line about
What's up?
being broken, you can be unbroken.
Oh.
I think that's really good.
Well, yeah, I would say to anyone listening, if they feel that they're broken, given the life experiences that they have experienced, that you can revive yourself to a completely brand new life, and it's possible, given from all kinds of background abuse.
Yep.
And she's a living example of that. I would say that buried within you, every you, is a spark of greatness. It's a spark that can be fanned in the flames of unlimited enthusiasm and achievement, and that spark is not outside of you. It's not going to come to you from anything you acquire. It's only by going inside, and when you go inside, then you literally take your power back, and that's why you're here, and that's my encouragement to you.
Perfect ending. Thank you guys for the time and for making the trip up to Montana.
Yeah. Thank you for
Thank you
having
for
us.
having us.
Of course.
It's an
Yeah.
honor.
My pleasure.
That was fun.